Bloodbound, from thief to savior. I never meant to steal a cursed sword, but then again, I never meant to become a thief either. Life in Ravencourt doesn't exactly offer many choices to orphans like me. The night I took Bloodwhisper changed everything. I remember the weight of it in my hand, surprisingly light for something that would soon become such a burden. The hilt seemed to mold to my palm as if it had been waiting for me. Perhaps it had. The Vyerk's estate loomed against the midnight sky, its spires piercing the darkness like accusing fingers. I'd cased it for weeks, mapping the patrol routes of the guards, noting when the shadow mages performed their rituals. Tonight was perfect, a new moon, and most of the household attending some fancy gala across the city. I slipped through the garden, my worn leather boots silent against the damp earth. The lock on the servants' entrance gave way easily under my picks. Too easily, perhaps, but desperation makes fools of us all. Just grab something valuable and get out, I whispered to myself, breath fogging in the cold air of the mansion. One good score and you can eat for a month. The display room was exactly where my informant had said it would be. Glass cases filled with trinkets and treasures that could feed the entire lower ward for years. But it was the sword that caught my eye unadorned, almost plain compared to the jeweled weapons surrounding it. Something about it called to me. The case wasn't even locked. As my fingers closed around the hilt, pain shot up my arm like lightning. I would have screamed if I could breathe. The sword, it was asterisk inside asterisk me somehow, its essence flowing into my veins, burning like liquid fire. Who dares? The voice wasn't in my ears, but in my mind, ancient and hungry. I tried to drop the sword, but my fingers wouldn't obey. The blade seemed to pulse with a dull crimson light. After all these years, the voice continued, a thief becomes my wielder. How appropriate. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. I had no choice but to run, the sword clutched in my trembling hand, my fate now bound to a weapon with a voice like death itself. The first time I used Bloodwhisper was an accident. 3 of the Gutter King's enforcers cornered me in an alley off Tanner's Row. They'd been hunting me since I crossed their territory fleeing the Vyerk's estate. Nowhere to run, little shadow. The largest one sneered, drawing a rusted cleaver. The sword practically leapt into my hand of its own accord. I'd never trained with a blade before, but suddenly my body moved with deadly precision. The first enforcer fell before he could even raise his weapon, a clean slash across his throat. As his blood sprayed, the sword drank asterisk there's no other word for it. The crimson liquid never touched the ground, instead flowing along the blade and disappearing. Power surged through me. I felt stronger, faster, my senses sharpening until I could hear the panicked heartbeats of the remaining thugs. What are you? One whispered, backing away. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Bloodwhisper answered for me, and soon both men lay dead at my feet. Delicious, the sword purred in my mind. It has been too long since I tasted life. I should have been horrified. Instead, I felt alive, more alive than I'd ever been. Within weeks, my name Lira Shadowhand was whispered throughout the criminal underworld. Jobs that would have been suicide before became simple with Bloodwhisper at my side. I took contracts no one else would touch, eliminating rivals for crime lords, stealing artifacts from heavily guarded estates. Gold flowed into my pockets. I moved from the rat-infested room I'd called home to a modest apartment in the merchant quarter. For the first time in my life, I didn't go to bed hungry. You're welcome, Bloodwhisper would say after each kill, its voice growing clearer, stronger with each life it consumed. I began to notice changes in myself. My reflexes became preternaturally quick. Wounds healed overnight. I could see perfectly in darkness. But sometimes, catching my reflection, I'd notice my eyes flickering with the same crimson light that occasionally pulsed along the blade. We are becoming one, the sword told me one night, as it should be. The first warning came from an unexpected source. I'd been hired to steal financial records from Lord Cassius Brightblade, a nobleman with a reputation for honesty in a city where such a thing was nearly unheard of. The job was simple enough, but as I rifled through his study, the door opened. Cassius Brightblade was younger than I expected, perhaps 30, with sharp features and eyes that seemed to cut through pretense. And he wasn't surprised to see me. I've been waiting for someone to come, he said calmly, making no move toward the alarm bell. his eyes fixed on the sword at my hip, so it found a new wielder. Bloodwhisper hissed in my mind, "Kill him now." For the first time, I resisted the blade's command. "You know what this is." "Better than you, I suspect." Cassius gestured to a chair. "Please sit. That sword has been in my family for generations, until it was stolen 50 years ago." "He lies," Bloodwhisper snarled. "End him." But Cassius was already pulling books from his shelves, opening to pages with illustrations that made my blood run cold. The sword, depicted in ancient woodcuts, surrounded by bodies, and wielders dozens of them over centuries, each looking less human as the pages progressed. Bloodwhisper was forged during the Mage Wars, Cassius explained, by my ancestor Alaric Brightblade. It was meant to be a weapon against the shadow mages of House Vyerks, but the forging process was corrupted. The blade developed a hunger. "It drinks blood," I said quietly. "It drinks more than blood," Lira Shadowhand. My name on his lips sent a chill through me. "It consumes identity, memory, humanity bit by bit. How long have you carried it? 3 months, you're already changing." I wanted to deny it, but the evidence was there in the mirror each morning. The strange crimson flickers in my eyes, the dreams that weren't my own battles fought centuries ago, the exhilaration of killing. The previous wielder lasted 8 years before the sword completely consumed him, Cassius continued. He began as a palace guard and ended as a monster who slaughtered entire villages to feed the blade's hunger. "Don't listen," Bloodwhisper urged. "We are meant for greatness. Together, we can rule this city." "Why tell me this?" I asked Cassius. "Why not call the guards?" His smile held no humor. "Because I need your help. The sword must be returned to my family so we can attempt to cleanse it. And because House Vyerks is searching for it, they believe they can use it to complete a ritual begun centuries ago." "What ritual?" "One that would plunge this city into eternal darkness and give the shadow mages dominion over all life." I laughed bitterly. "And I'm supposed to believe you're the hero in this story, a nobleman concerned with the welfare of the city." "I'm no hero," Cassius replied, "but I am trying to correct my family's greatest mistake. The question is, how much of Lira Shadowhand remains to make her own choices?" I left without the financial records, Cassius's words echoing in my mind, battling against Bloodwhisper's seductive promises of power. That night, I dreamed of a forge burning with unnatural fire and a smith whose tears fell upon molten metal as he worked. I woke with the certainty that the dream wasn't mine. I tried to stop using the sword. For 2 weeks, I kept it wrapped in cloth, locked in a trunk beneath my bed. But the withdrawal was agonizing. Tremors racked my body, fever burned through me, and Bloodwhisper's voice became a constant, maddening whisper in my mind. "You need me, we are one now. Without me, you're nothing." When the assassins from House Vyerks came, I had no choice. 3 shadow mages, their bodies wreathed in darkness, materialized in my apartment. I barely reached the trunk in time. The moment my hand closed around Bloodwhisper's hilt, relief flooded through me. The sword sang as it tasted the blood of the first mage, drinking deeply as the man's shadow magic dissipated into the air. "More," I whispered, echoing the blade's desire. "More." The remaining assassins never stood a chance. When it was over, I stood among 3 corpses, their blood completely absorbed by the insatiable weapon. I felt invincible, godlike. And I wanted more. The next weeks passed in a blur of violence. I no longer waited for contracts. I hunted members of House Vyerks, feeding Bloodwhispers, and my own growing addiction. With each kill, the sword's power flowed into me, and with each power surge, another piece of my identity slipped away. I began to forget things. My childhood. My real name, had it always been Lira? The face of the woman who raised me in the orphanage blurred in my memory, replaced by visions of ancient battles. Cassius found me again, this time in a tavern where I was tracking another Vyerks agent. "You're fading," he said quietly, sliding into the seat across from me. "Look at your hands." I glanced down and froze. Veins of crimson light pulsed beneath my skin, visible even in the dim tavern light. "The sword is consuming you faster than I thought possible," Cassius continued. "You must have been feeding it well." "I can control it," I insisted, though doubt gnawed at me. "Can you?" He reached across the table suddenly, his fingers brushing mine. Bloodwhisper screamed in my mind, and before I could stop myself, I had the blade at Cassius's throat. The tavern patrons scattered, shouting in alarm. "Kill him," the sword demanded, its voice thunderous in my head. My hand trembled. One quick slash and the problem would be solved. One more feeding for Bloodwhisper. One step closer to ultimate power. But something in Cassius's steady gaze held me back. He showed no fear, only sadness. "This is not who you are," he said softly. "Fight it, Lira." With a cry of frustration, I lowered the blade. "Help me," I whispered, the words torn from somewhere deep inside a part of me not yet consumed by the sword's influence. Magister Vyrx was not what I expected. I had imagined a withered old man, stooped with the weight of dark magic. Instead, the leader of House Vyrx was a woman perhaps 10 years my senior, with sharp features and eyes like chips of obsidian. "The sword thief," she said, her voice carrying easily across the grand chamber where her underlings had brought me. I expected someone more impressive. I struggled against the shadow bindings that held me immobile. After leaving Cassius, I had tried to follow his advice to resist Bloodwhisper's bloodlust. The weakness that followed left me vulnerable, and House Vyrx had been watching. They'd taken the sword, keeping it just out of my reach. I could still hear its voice, but distant now, frantic. "The blade has bonded deeply with you," Magister Vyrx observed, circling me slowly. "Fascinating. Most wielders take years to integrate so completely." "What do you want from me?" I managed to ask through gritted teeth. "Nothing from you, little thief. You're merely the vessel. It's the sword we require." She gestured, and acolytes began drawing complex patterns on the floor around me with what looked disturbingly like blood. "Do you know what Bloodwhisper truly is?" I remained silent, though the sword's distant howling grew more desperate. "It is a key," she continued, "forged from the essence of a bound demon and the blood of my ancestors. The bright blades stole it centuries ago, thinking to use it against us. They never understood its purpose." The patterns on the floor began to glow with sickly green light. "Tonight, the stars align for the first time in 500 years, Magister Vyrx said, her voice taking on a ritualistic cadence. "With the key and a suitable sacrifice, we will open the door to the Shadow Realm and bring forth our true masters." Sacrifice, the word hung in the air between us. "You're going to kill me," I said, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. Her smile was almost pitying. "Death would be merciful compared to what awaits you. Your body and soul will become the gateway. What remains of you will experience every moment of the crossing." As the chanting of the acolytes grew louder, I felt something inside me shift. Not Bloodwhisper's influence, but something deeper. A clarity I hadn't felt since before I stole the sword. I had been so focused on whether I was losing myself to the blade that I hadn't considered a more important question. Who was I fighting to remain? A thief, a killer, a pawn in a centuries-old magical conflict. In that moment of clarity, I reached for Bloodwhisper not physically, but with my mind. Our connection had grown too strong to be severed by mere distance. "You don't want this either," I thought toward the sword. "To be used as a key, controlled by others. That's not what you were made for." The blade's response was immediate and surprising. "No, I was made for battle, for glory." "Then help me, one last time, not as your slave, but as your partner." The sword's presence in my mind changed, becoming less domineering, more focused. "What do you propose, thief?" "They want a gateway. Let's give them one they won't forget." The ritual reached its crescendo as the moon reached its zenith. Magister Vyrx held Bloodwhisper aloft, its blade gleaming in the unnatural light of the ritual circle. "With blood and shadow, we open the way," she intoned. That's when I made my move. Months of carrying Bloodwhisper had changed me in ways even I hadn't fully understood. The shadow bindings that held me magic that should have been impenetrable shattered as I channeled the sword's power through my veins. Before the stunned acolytes could react, I was moving, faster than human eyes could track. Not toward the sword, but toward the ritual components arranged around the circle. "Stop her," Vyrx screamed, but it was too late. I smashed the carefully arranged crystals, scattered the blood patterns, and upended the ceremonial bowls. The ritual energy, already building to its peak, destabilized violently. Vyrx raised Bloodwhisper, intending to strike me down, but the sword, My partner now, not my master, betrayed her. As her hands closed around the hilt, the blade turned liquid, flowing like quicksilver up her arms. Her scream cut off as Bloodwhisper reformed, now protruding from her chest. I caught the hilt as she fell, feeling the familiar rush as the sword drank her lifeblood. But this time, I controlled the flow, taking only what I needed. "This ends now," I told the remaining cultists, Bloodwhisper glowing with purpose in my hand. "The ritual is broken." But magic this powerful doesn't simply dissipate. The destabilized energy swirled around us, tearing rifts in reality. Through them, I glimpsed the shadow realm, a place of endless darkness and hungry entities that made Bloodwhisper seem tame by comparison. "What have you done?" one of the acolytes wailed. "You've doomed us all." Perhaps I had, but I finally understood what Cassius had been trying to tell me. The sword wasn't just a weapon or a curse, it was a responsibility. Together, Bloodwhisper's voice came, clearer than ever in my mind, as equals. I nodded and stepped toward the largest rift, blade extended. "I am Lira Shadowhand," I declared, to the sword as much as to the watching cultists. "I choose my own fate." Plunging Bloodwhisper into the center of the rift, I channeled every ounce of power we had accumulated together. The sword extended tendrils of crimson energy, stitching the torn reality back together. The effort was excruciating. I felt as though my soul was being pulled apart and rewoven along with the fabric of reality. But for the first time since taking up the blade, I was in control, not controlling Bloodwhisper, but working with it, our purposes aligned. When it was done, I stood alone in the chamber, the cultists either fled or dead. The sword in my hand felt different, lighter somehow, though its presence in my mind remained. "We have changed," it observed. "Both of us," I agreed. Cassius was waiting outside the Vyerk's compound, a small contingent of city guards with him. His eyes widened at the sight of me. I could only imagine how I must have looked, covered in blood and magical residue, Bloodwhisper glowing faintly at my side. "You did it," he said, something like awe in his voice. "Not exactly according to plan," I replied, swaying slightly on my feet. The night's events had taken their toll. He dismissed the guards and helped me to a waiting carriage. "The sword is still with me," I finished for him, "and will remain so." Cassius frowned. "Lira, you don't understand the danger." "I understand better than anyone." I met his gaze steadily, knowing my eyes still held traces of Bloodwhisper's crimson light. "The sword and I have reached an understanding. I'm not its victim anymore, nor its master. We're partners." "Well put," Bloodwhisper commented silently. "That's not possible," Cassius insisted. "The blade corrupts, it's its nature." "Perhaps, but nature can change when given no alternative." I looked down at the sword, now quiet in its sheath. House Vyerk's is broken, but the shadow magic they wielded has been unleashed. Someone needs to stand against what's coming. "And that someone is you, a thief." I smiled, feeling the weight of my new purpose. A thief who stole her own fate back from destiny. Besides, who better to fight shadows than someone who knows the darkness intimately? Cassius studied me for a long moment before nodding slowly. "My family has resources knowledge about what Vyerk's was attempting, about the rifts between worlds. If you're truly committed to this path." "I am," the certainty in my voice surprised even me. "Then you won't walk it alone." As the carriage rolled through the pre-dawn streets, I felt Bloodwhisper's presence in my mind, still hungry, still dangerous, but no longer overwhelming. We had both been transformed by our bond, becoming something neither of us could have been alone. I had entered House Vyerk's as a thief desperate to escape a cursed blade's influence. I emerged as something else entirely, not quite human anymore, but more myself than I had ever been. The war for Ravencourt's soul was just beginning. Rifts to the shadow realm would continue to appear. Cultists still lurked in the darkness. But for the first time in my life, I had found my purpose. "We will be magnificent," Bloodwhisper whispered. "We already are," I replied, watching the sun rise over the city that had shaped me, the city I would now protect, one shadow at a time. The blade that had nearly consumed me would now help me save others. The greatest theft of all, it turned out, was stealing back my own destiny. And I, Lira Shadowhand, had always been very good at stealing. Thank you for listening.